Hi, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us here at Firstpost America. We're live in the nation's capital of Washington, D.C., and over the next few minutes, we'll take you from the United States and around the world, covering all the top stories of the day. But before we get to that, here's a look at the latest headlines. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky calls for a face-to-face meeting with Russia's Vladimir Putin to end the ongoing war. The statement comes after Donald Trump's special envoy held talks with Putin in Moscow just yesterday. China's exports climbed 7.2% in July, beating expectations as the clock on a tariff truce with the United States keeps ticking. Thailand and Cambodia's top defense officials agreed to allow regional bloc ASEAN to act as observers of the ceasefire and help ensure hostilities do not resume between the two countries after deadly border clashes last month. Taiwanese investigators say they've raided 16 Chinese-funded companies across 70 locations on suspicion of illegal poaching high-tech talent to steal secrets from the island's chip industry. And firefighters in France battle wildfires for the third consecutive day to contain the biggest blaze in nearly 8 decades, which has burnt over 16,000 hectares, killed 1 person, and destroyed dozens of homes. We begin here in Washington, where President Donald Trump's latest set of tariffs on countries around the world have officially gone into effect. Through an executive order signed last week, the tariffs range from 10 to 50%, impacting a broad list of major U.S. trading partners. The latest round of duties mark a major escalation in U.S. trade policy aimed at addressing long-standing trade imbalances and promoting domestic manufacturing. The July 31st order imposed duties above 10% on 67 countries. But for all others not on the list, the order said that the rate would be 10%. Here's a rundown of some of the countries impacted. India faces a 25% tariff initially set to double to 50% in about 3 weeks' time. The White House cites New Delhi's continued purchase of Russian oil as a key reason. Brazil's rates have climbed to 50%, with the administration linking the move to what it calls a witch hunt against former President Jair Bolsonaro. Canada, too, has been hit. Tariffs climbed from 25 to 35% for goods not compliant with the United States-Mexico-Canada Free Trade Agreement, while compliant goods remain exempt. Switzerland has been slapped with a 39% tariff, one of the highest among U.S. partners. And many products of the European Union, Japan, and South Korea now face a 15% tariff, even with deals struck to avert steeper threatened levies. China, meanwhile, remains on a separate tariff track. A potential increase could kick in on August 12th unless the president agrees to extend an earlier truce following talks in Sweden last week. Now, President Trump has also hinted that China could face penalties over its continued imports of Russian oil.
India penalties, do you have any similar plans to enact more tariffs on China as it relates to their purchases?
Could happen. Depends on how we do. Could happen. It may happen. I mean, I don't know. I can't tell you yet, but we did it with India. We're doing it probably with a couple of others. One of them could be China, yes.
Now, not everything is covered under these duties. Smartphones remain exempt, and goods that were already en route to the United States before midnight will enter at their previous rates. It's also worth noting that these higher tariffs do not apply to sector-specific imports that are separately targeted, such as steel, autos, pharmaceuticals, and chips. On Wednesday, President Trump made headlines by announcing a 100% tariff on chips and semiconductors. Listen.
We'll be putting a tariff on of approximately 100% on chips and semiconductors. But if you're building in the United States of America, there's no charge, even though you're building and you're not producing yet in terms of the big numbers of jobs and all of the things that you're building. If you're building, there will be no charge.
Now, these tariff spikes have prompted sharp global responses. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi said New Delhi will never compromise on the interests of farmers, fishermen, and dairy farmers, adding that he's ready to pay a heavy price. Meanwhile, Brazil's President Lula declared that he saw no value in entering tariff talks with Washington. And Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney said his country was now shifting from reliance to resilience following the rate increase. Now, despite these strong words, financial markets appeared mostly unmoved. Asian stocks traded near record highs, while the U.S. dollar registered only a slight dip. So as these tariffs take full effect, they're poised to reshape trade relationships, supply chains, and diplomatic dynamics. Still, the weeks ahead could further determine how businesses, governments, and consumers adapt to this new economic landscape. So as tariffs kick in, President Trump's pressure is not just on countries, but also on big tech American companies now bowing to his directive. And the latest to do so is none other than Apple. President Donald Trump said that the iPhone maker would invest an additional $100 billion in the United States, taking its total pledge to $600 billion over the next 4 years. Trump announced the increased commitment at the White House alongside tech giant CEO Tim Cook, calling it the largest investment Apple has made in America.
As you know, Apple's been an investor in other countries a little bit. I won't say which ones, but a couple. And they're coming home. $600 billion. It's the biggest there is. The company is also unveiling its ambitious new American manufacturing program, which will bring factories and assembly lines across our country all roaring to life.
Now, the announcement centers on expanding Apple's supply chain and advanced manufacturing footprint right here in the United States. The tech giant's new manufacturing partners include companies such as specialty glass maker Corning, semiconductor manufacturing equipment supplier Applied Materials, and chip makers like Texas Instruments, Global Foundries, Broadcom, and Samsung.
This is a significant step toward the ultimate goal of ensuring that iPhones sold in the United States of America also are made in America. With the mass infusion of capital it's announcing today, Apple will also open state-of-the-art manufacturing economy. It's going to be a manufacturing academy in Detroit.
Now, despite the president demanding Apple begin making iPhones domestically, Tim Cook clarified that while many iPhone components will be manufactured in the United States, final assembly will continue to be done overseas.
The whole thing is just the final assembly that you're focused on. And that will be elsewhere for a while.
Apple's latest investment comes as President Trump pushes American companies to reshore manufacturing by imposing tariffs on trading partners. The tech giant's commitment follows a series of tariffs imposed under the Trump administration, initially targeting Chinese imports early in his second term. Now, that policy had already prompted Apple to move some production away from China to other countries like India. But with a new round of tariffs expanding to imports from India, a major hub for Apple's iPhone assembly, pressure has now mounted for the company to strengthen its manufacturing base at home. In February, Apple said it would invest $500 billion in the U.S. and hire 20,000 workers over the next 4 years. But the president still criticized Apple and Tim Cook for not making iPhones entirely in the United States. In May, Donald Trump threatened Apple with a 25% tariff on products manufactured overseas, a reversal from earlier policy when smartphones and electronics were exempt from tariffs on Chinese goods. Now, this came after he said he wasn't interested in Apple building facilities in India, adding that the South Asian country could take care of itself. And in the Oval Office on Wednesday, amid growing pressure from the White House, Cook gifted the president a showpiece, a circular glass design in the U.S. and mounted on a base of 24-karat gold. He noted that the glass was created by a former U.S. Marine corporal, now an Apple employee.
And this glass comes off the Corning line. It's engraved for President Trump. It's a unique unit of one. It was designed by a U.S. Marine Corps corporal, a former one, that works at Apple now.
That's good. He's done well.
Designed it for you. And the base comes from Utah and is 24-karat gold. And it sits, I'll take the liberty of setting it up.
Wow.
Well, let's see. There we go. Congratulations,
Thank you
Mr.
very much.
President.
It's
Thank you so
fantastic.
much.
But despite Apple's latest move to deflect administration pressure, analysts remain skeptical whether it will create the manufacturing jobs the president continues to promise.
I mean, I think what President Trump has done, to his credit, is he has created an atmosphere where business leaders are seen as it's part of their responsibility to create more jobs in America. So to the extent that at the margin, this will encourage brilliant innovators like Tim Cook to think about creating more jobs, that's a good thing. Right now, the announcement did not convince me that that's what would happen. More investments in AI data centers is likely, in fact, to lead to fewer jobs as AI and technology, eat up jobs, replace jobs.
So while Apple's latest pledge may help it navigate a changing trade environment, it stops short of full return to domestic manufacturing. And as pressure from the White House continues to build, the question remains, will Apple start building the iPhone entirely in the United States? In ancient Greece, a wooden horse was left outside the gates of Troy. It looked like a gift, but inside, soldiers hid, waiting to strike. Now, a modern-day version of the mythology has played out in Los Angeles. A yellow rental truck rolled into a Home Depot parking lot. It looked harmless, but inside were masked federal agents armed and ready to arrest immigrants waiting to get to work. The Department of Homeland Security called it Operation Trojan Horse. Let's watch.
Inside a rental truck, masked federal agents waited in silence. Cramped between metal walls, heavily armed and dressed in uniforms. They formed a queue, still and ready. The back door rolled open and they sprang into action. One wore a cowboy hat and the others clutched rifles. And within seconds they hit the pavement outside a Home Depot in Los Angeles. What followed was a scene of dozens fleeing as sirens echoed in the air. Day laborers who had been standing nearby scattered in panic. It was fast, it was loud, and it was planned. 16 undocumented immigrants were arrested from Guatemala, Mexico, Honduras, and Nicaragua. This was Operation Trojan Horse. Yes, that's what the Department of Homeland Security called it, a tactic straight from ancient warfare, a decoy on wheels. Because just like the ancient Greek tale, the agents hid inside what looked harmless, a rental truck. From the outside it promised work, but inside it carried force. A witness said the truck arrived at around 6:45 a.m., that someone stepped out and offered work in Spanish. And just as people approached, the ambush began. The Department of Homeland Security, or the DHS, said this was a targeted operation. But targeted based on what? They did not say. No official list of names, no clarity on whether any individuals were specifically identified. The yellow truck used in the raid belongs to Penske, a private rental company. Now it says it had no prior knowledge of the operation and that such use of its vehicles is strictly prohibited. The company has now approached the DHS to prevent this from happening again. But questions remain, not just about the tactics, but the legality. This region is under a court order. The Trump administration has been blocked from carrying out such immigration raids in 7 California counties. The recent order prohibits federal agents from stopping or arresting individuals based solely on ethnicity, language, location, or type of work. Since then, such large-scale raids had stopped. Until now. The enforcers may have changed their method, but not their mission. After the raids, the Trump-appointed acting U.S. Attorney for Los Angeles said immigration enforcement never stopped, and that federal law is not negotiable. Just like this incident, federal agents have frequently targeted locations where immigrants are known to gather. Places like Home Depot lots are often visited by day laborers waiting for work. But the use of a rental truck to conduct such an operation was a change in tactics for the agents, who have often arrived in vehicles that are unmarked but still recognizable as law enforcement. Since June, Los Angeles has become ground zero for the Trump administration's aggressive immigration push, a strategy that has triggered protests and even led to the deployment of the National Guard and Marines for more than a month. Federal agents have swept through bus stops, car washes, and farms. Immigrants without legal status have been detained en masse, and in some cases, so have US citizens. They called it Operation Trojan Horse, but the real deception was not the truck. It was their tactic. Laws were bent, rights were blurred, and it was a reminder that not all Trojan horses are left at the gates. Some pull right into the parking lots.
And now to a political firestorm that's blazing over redistricting as a naked power grab by Republicans continues to grip the nation. Yesterday, a group of Texas Democrats who fled the state to block a controversial redistricting plan say they were the direct target of a bomb threat. The incident occurred at a hotel in St. Charles, Illinois, where many of the lawmakers were staying. Police evacuated around 400 people and carried out a full bomb sweep with no device ultimately found. And the group later confirmed they were in fact safe.
This is what happens when Republican state leaders publicly call for us to be hunted down. Texas Democrats won't be intimidated.
The lawmakers fled the state on August 3rd to deny Republicans the quorum needed to pass a new congressional map that would wipe out 5 Democratic congressional seats by eliminating districts made up of largely black and brown communities. Their main concern is gerrymandering, which essentially is manipulating the boundaries of an electoral constituency so as to favor one party over the other. The Democrats say the new map is heavily skewed to favor Republicans and would significantly reduce the influence of Hispanic voters. And under the proposal, Republicans would hold up to 30 of Texas's 38 congressional seats, a sharp rise from the 25 they currently control.
It's not just Texas. It really is the United States of America, because if they succeed in Texas, they will take this to other states. They will take this to the county court level. They will take this to the commissioners, the school boards. They will take this across the length and breadth of the country.
Pushed by Donald Trump and backed by Texas Governor Greg Abbott, the Texas GOP is pushing their redistricting plan forward despite the growing backlash. In fact, Governor Abbott has now filed an emergency petition with the Texas Supreme Court to remove Democratic member of Texas House of Representatives Gene Wu from his office and declare his seat vacant, accusing the Democrat of abandoning their constitutional duties. However, Wu hit back, saying his duty is to the people who elected him, not to a political agenda.
Their attempts to disenfranchise Texans is the tool they're using is a racist, gerrymandered map. A map that seeks to use racial lines to divide hard-working communities who have spent decades building up their power and strengthening their voices. And Governor Abbott is doing this in submission to Donald Trump.
And now this fight is expanding beyond the Texas borders as lawmakers from other states are rallying behind the effort, warning that the Texas redistricting strategy, which they call Trumpmandering, could be copied in other GOP-controlled states like Ohio, Missouri, and Indiana.
This tyranny in real time. We've all heard the term gerrymandering, which was founded here in Massachusetts. This, ladies and gentlemen, is Trumpmandering, and all the Republicans are pandering to the Trumpmandering. And if it can happen in Texas, the second largest state in the country, it will happen elsewhere. This is not a one-off. It's a blueprint. If we do not stop it now, they'll copy and paste it across the country.
And now Democratic governors like Gavin Newsom of California and Kathy Hochul of New York are getting in the fight, declaring they too will redraw maps in their own states to fight back, though legal hurdles still remain.
California will not sit by idly and watch this democracy waste away. We'll fight fire with fire, we'll assert ourselves, and we'll punch above our weight, and it will have profound impacts on the national outcome, not just here in the state of California.
So as tensions rise, daily fines for the absent Texas lawmakers continue to pile up, but they say they're unfazed, and so the fight is on for the political power, and both sides are locked in to this political war with no end in sight. Couture has long borrowed from culture, but the line between homage and harm is wearing thin. In Mexico, Adidas is now under fire for releasing sandals that closely resemble tradition. Huaraches from Oaxaca without credit or consent. Designed by American fashion designer Willie Chavarria, the Oaxaca slip-on has ignited outrage among indigenous communities and officials who call it a blatant act of cultural appropriation. But this is not only the case. From runway shows that mimic prison imagery to brands simply copying South Asian dresses, all have faced similar accusations. So the question is, when heritage becomes high fashion, why is the acknowledgement almost always missing? Our final report takes you inside.
Adidas has found itself at the center of a cultural appropriation storm in Mexico after launching a new line of sandals that closely resemble traditional Oaxacan huarache. The Oaxaca slip-on sandals were designed by Willie Chavarria, a Mexican-American creative known for fusing fashion with bold political commentary. But this time, the reinterpretation hit a nerve. Officials in Oaxaca, home to one of Mexico's largest indigenous populations, have accused the sportswear giant of commercializing a design uniquely tied to the Hidalgo Yalalag village. Governor Salomon Jara Cruz threatened legal action, and the Ministry of Culture and Arts demanded that Adidas pull the sandals and open talks with the community. Now, it is not the first time Chavarria's work has attracted criticism. During Paris Men's Fashion Week in June, his show opened with models kneeling in all-white clothing, imagery that El Salvador President Nayib Bukele linked to scenes from his country's notorious Secot prison. Chavarria brushed off backlash, calling it amazing publicity, and defended the runway as a broader artistic statement on global dehumanization.
My first thought was amazing publicity for my brand. Thank you. Amazing global reach. Sadly, we live in a very divided world. I think that anyone who is an artist is going to receive some kind of commentary from people who might not align with their ideas.
This is hardly a solo misstep in fashion's long checkered history with cultural appropriation. Earlier this year, luxury brand Prada came under fire in Milan after debuting leather sandals with toe rings and embroidery, resembling India's iconic kolhapuri slippers. Initially marketed as a fresh luxury twist on flats, the backlash was swift. Only after widespread criticism did Prada admit the sandals were inspired by Indian tradition and promised to work with local artisans in future. Then there is the dupatta debacle. Modern sustainable brand reformation and rental business, Bipti, were accused of glamorizing Indian scarves and traditional lehenga-inspired garments without once acknowledging their South Asian roots. The reaction on social media was fierce and unforgiving. Even the world of running shoes isn't exempt. Back in March, French-American brand Hoka came under fire in New Zealand for misusing the Maori word hoka, which means to fly, without engaging with Maori communities or honoring the world's cultural weight. Experts slammed the company for erasing origin stories and disrespecting sacred language, especially as some shoe styles also carry significant Maori meanings. So where does fashion go from here? As indigenous communities grow more vocal and consumers are more conscious, the line between cultural celebration and cultural theft is getting thicker. Designers say they are inspired, but communities say they are invisible. And as the runway lights dim and lawsuits loom, one question remains unanswered. Who really owns the story when fashion walks off with the past?
That's our show for today, and from all of us here at Firstpost America, we thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to like us on YouTube and also share with others. Thanks for watching, and we look forward to seeing you right back here tomorrow.